Denver Sports presents the Mile High Hockey Podcast with Mike Evans, presented by Fort Comfort Gutters. Now here's your host with the latest on the Burgundy and Blue, Mike Evans.
Hey everybody, welcome into the Mile High Hockey Podcast presented by Fort Comfort Gutters. Your comfort, our priority. As we jump into another week of Avalanche hockey, fresh off a weekend in which they split. They went up to Winnipeg and got beat pretty soundly, then came home and beat San Jose pretty easily. So we'll kind of work in order here. The Winnipeg game, the schedule makers don't do you any favors, do you? And I get it. You're professional and all this and all that, but let's face it, Winnipeg in December is not an ideal destination spot for anybody. Even hockey players that are used to playing in cold weather cities and all that, a one-game road trip to Winnipeg just doesn't make sense. I mean, that's something where you just buckle up and you prepare for the fact that you're going to be gone for a week and you're going to Edmonton and Vancouver and Calgary and Winnipeg and just get all the misery out and done in one fell swoop. But it was a one-game road trip to Winnipeg, and I'm not surprised that the Avalanche didn't exactly put forth their best effort. I think that sometimes you just got to, when you're talking about these professional hockey players, any professional athlete, there are just going to be times where you just don't really feel the motivation with what the schedule's giving you. And that was a tough one. That was almost one where, like, you have a scheduled loss. You know, sometimes you just, as a team, as a coach, as a fan, you look at it and you just say, boy, this one just feels like we're being set up for a loss. And it happened. It happened. Winnipeg's a good team. Winnipeg, they're no joke. But I would love to see the Avalanche and Winnipeg in a footing, a setting where I felt like the Avalanche would maybe be a little bit more engaged. Then let's see what happens. But no, so far Winnipeg's proven to be a little bit of a thorn in the Avs side, so we'll see how this plays out as the season goes along. Certainly adding a little bit of intrigue in the division, so away we go. But as far as then bouncing back and coming right back and beating San Jose, what a perfect team. I know San Jose has been playing better of late, but still, they're a horrible hockey team, and for the Avalanche to be able to get the win that they did, 6-2, and to jump right out on them. You know, they scored the 3 goals early on. Jared Bednar was talking about how they got that major penalty early in the game. He said, you know, it's funny. Normally you would think that getting a power play that early is a good way to jumpstart a game. But he said, you know, so often it takes guys a little bit of time to engage in the game. And just because you get a power play like that early on, it's not always a surefire thing to be able to get your team going. But the Avalanche did jump out to that 3-0 lead in the first period. And boy, what a dominant. I'm just checking my notes here. I want to make sure I have the numbers correct. But what a dominant performance by that top line, Val Nichushkin, Mikko Rantanen, and Nathan MacKinnon, as Bednar was talking about afterwards, just a juggernaut of a line. And you're getting 2 goals, 2 assists from MacKinnon, a goal from Val, a goal from Rantanen. That's dangerous right there. That is lethal right there. So you take that as the Avs and you put that aside and you feel good about that, and that's something you can rely upon. But if there's an issue still with this hockey team that bears watching, and we're looking at the big picture here, okay? This isn't about just beating the San Jose Sharks 6-2 in the middle of December. This is about taking a look at this hockey team and asking yourself, do they have the pieces in place to be able to win a Stanley Cup? That's all this is about, right? It's not about beating San Jose in December. It's about, do you feel like this team is set up to win a Stanley Cup? And it's the storyline that we started out talking about this season, and it continues to be the number one issue surrounding this hockey team, is the supporting cast around this core. And Bednar himself admitting, I'm still kind of trying to figure out those second and third lines. And he's moving guys around. And you look at some of the combinations right now, and you're looking at Ross Colton with Miles Wood and Jonathan Drouin. You got Ryan Johansson, who was brought here to be the second-line center. Now he's 3C on that third line with Cogliano and O'Connor. In Bednar's words, he wants to get some workers, some real grit guys, energy guys with Johansson to try to get him going. Now, he did have a goal in the San Jose game, and that's a good sign, but it continues to be the biggest issue with this hockey team. And as I said, I think last week on this podcast, these are first world problems, okay? There are plenty of hockey teams that would love to have the issues that the Avalanche have, but the Avalanche, they're playing in such rarefied air, right? They're all about trying to win a cup that you look at the uncertainty and you look at Bednar admitting and acknowledging that he's still trying to figure out these second and third lines. That's crucial, right? That's everything as you look down the road and want to see where this team is going to be and how they're set up to try to make a Stanley Cup run. So we'll continue to watch that develop. The other thing is we saw Tomas Tatar traded. Just last week we were on this podcast talking about, hey, he finally got off the schneid. He finally got a goal. Goes 26 games without a goal. He finally gets one, and his reaction was just like, thank goodness, right? The heavens will open now, right? And you think, all right, maybe he'll go on a little bit of a heater here. Instead, he's traded to the Kraken for a 5th-round pick. And it does call into question the job that the front office is doing. And it does need to be scrutinized a bit here because last year, this front office did not do a good job of putting together a supporting cast around their core. They acknowledged that by how sweeping the changes were with the supporting cast this year. And one of those acquisitions was Tomas Tatar, and it was met with a lot of optimism, a good value signing, that there was a lot of upside to what he was going to be able to bring, and he was going to be part of this puzzle, if you will. And a third of the way, little more than a third of the way through the season, they move on from him, and for just getting a 5th-round pick. Now, plenty of speculation out there is that this might be a precursor to a bigger move by the Avs. We shall see. Again, it is the storyline of the season, is this puzzle that the roster puzzle that the Avalanche put together before this season. How does it play out? How do the pieces fit? And by the time you get closer to the trade deadline, are there going to be some other moves that you need to make to address what you have discovered over the first part of your season as being not enough, as lacking? And you got to go out and you got to address it. So right away, Tatar, hey, I do give him credit for this. Okay, it was a miss. I guess it was a bust, right? It was a front office bust. They missed. But you don't want to just continue to belabor the miss, right? If you just don't think that this guy's going to fit and he needs a change of scenery, then you don't just belabor and hold on to a situation and let a situation that isn't working out, you don't let it fester. You cut it off, you rip off the Band-Aid, and you move on. As far as other issues with this hockey team, Cale Makar out with a lower body injury. Again, not expected to be anything serious, but, Cale's been dealing with, some nagging injuries this year, and that is, of course, just everything. If you're going to have any chance of making a run in a Stanley Cup, you got to have a healthy Cale Makar for hopefully all 4 rounds. So continuing to watch his health, see if they can get that to the point where he's a little bit more consistent in terms of being in the lineup. But the Avs losing to Winnipeg, bouncing back, beating San Jose. Top line is rolling. Good to see Mikko Rantanen get going again. You kind of had a feeling after, a 9-game goal streak drought for Mikko that once he got that first one, they'd start to come pretty rapidly, and they are. Val Nichushkin's playing really well. Nathan MacKinnon, by the way, can we talk a little bit about Nathan MacKinnon? I loved what Jared Bednar said about MacKinnon, that the way this guy goes about his business. And he's such a pro. He is obsessed, consumed with doing the right thing, taking care of himself, eating well, putting the time in the gym. He also says some interesting things about the way that MacKinnon practices. He said MacKinnon's not one of those high rep type guys, just keep doing it over and over again. He's somebody who believes, I don't need to be out there a long time. I don't need to do whatever the drill is a lot. Not as many reps, but he does them so hard with so much effort, so much energy that he gets out of it what he needs and then on to the next thing. Don't need to be out there a ton of time working on one drill over and over again. Get the work in, get the reps done, do it at a high tempo, high energy. And it just goes to show, there's different kinds of leadership, right? Gabe Landeskog is that perfect captain type where he leads certainly by example, but he also seems to know how to deal with teammates, talk to teammates. Whereas MacKinnon, maybe his style, we've heard about this from the time that MacKinnon first got here. This guy burns hot. He burns real hot. And he makes a lot of demands of himself, but he also makes a lot of demands of his teammates. And, some have said that, hey, Nate's style isn't for everybody because of how hot he burns. But to me, if you have a room full of guys that aren't embracing and aren't reacting to Nathan MacKinnon's form of leadership and the way that he pushes himself and everybody around him, how he demands so much of himself and people around him, if you have guys in that room who can't appreciate the way MacKinnon goes about his business, then you got the wrong guys. Now, those were questions that were talked about maybe early on in his days, and there were some players that had been moved on from that maybe didn't mesh with what MacKinnon's style was. But it's clear now that they do, and they've got a Stanley Cup to prove it. And MacKinnon just continues to play at a level that is, unbelievable. I've said this many times on the radio show. Here, I hear all the talk about these other forwards. I hear talk about the Connor McDavids, and some of these other top guys. And I've always said it, for my money, I got one game. The aliens are coming down. They're challenging us to a hockey game for supremacy of the universe. I want Nathan MacKinnon out there, and I'll take Nathan MacKinnon over any other forward that's out there, because he is a combination of talent, ferocity out on the ice, determination, hunger, skill. He's the total package. He just is. And for my money, I've always said that Cale Makar is the guy that if I had to start a franchise, I'd start it with Makar, just because of his ability to dominate on both ends of the ice as a defenseman and as a offensive force. But if we're just talking about the great forwards out there, then for my money, I take MacKinnon, and everybody else to me is second. So I guess what I'm saying is if I had my choice to start a hockey team with any two players, it would be Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon. Is that too much of a homer take? I don't think so, because I think there are probably plenty of hockey teams around the NHL that would probably agree with me, fans of other hockey teams, that if you had a chance to start your franchise with any two guys, might you take Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar out of everybody? Maybe it's just not an Avalanche thing. Anyway, that's where we're at right now. That'll do it for this edition of the Mile High Hockey Podcast, presented by Fort Comfort Gutters. Your comfort, our priority. And we'll be back later in the week. If I don't get a chance to talk to you later in the week, please have a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. And may your stocking be full of Avalanche merchandise and Avalanche gear, maybe some tickets thrown in there. Oh, I always loved getting tickets as a Christmas present. So hopefully Santa's very good to you, the Colorado Avalanche hockey fan. We'll see you later in the week here on the podcast.